When I announced that I was doing this podcast, at least 4 people messaged me saying, hey, I thought of a podcast idea too, and I really wanted to do it too.
To be blunt, it's just how bad you want it. Certain entrepreneurs or businessmen, they become who they are because of a dire need. It wasn't an option. Let me think about it. It wasn't an option. It's like either do or die. In my early years, when I was 24, 23 to 28, I partied far less. I missed a lot of events. Work hard at young and you can enjoy it afterwards.
My 20s is when I had to sacrifice a lot of the social events even though part of what I was doing did involve going to social events. I mean my friends' parties, for example. There's so many that I missed because that's the time I was putting in the work. I want to avoid the fear of failure, therefore I'm going to fantasize what my life should be like. What's your experience of dealing with the fear of failure?
That's a good question. I don't believe in saying take a break, just go all out.
Manoj, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Let's go through your titles first, just because my podcast is about everything except your titles.
Okay.
So you are the CEO of WolfPack Constructions.
Right.
You're the co-founder of a real estate development called NineTails Development, right?
Correct.
And you're a realtor.
Correct.
Those are all very intense titles to have. But let's take it back a bit and say, I want to get to know the person, maybe even like a decade ago or even the high school version of you.
Okay.
So who was that person back then that created this mindset of wanting to be an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. I didn't know the definition of entrepreneur or business for that matter because it was fairly a new concept, right? And I thought it was only reserved for certain people, right? So 10 years back, so 24, 23, it's a different time in my life where I was still searching, trying to make it, come out of working 9 to 5 and looking for a solution. So yeah, around that time is when I came across this person who gave me the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. It's a classic book. Everyone talks about it. And that book was an eye-opener for me, honestly, because that book adds certain things that told me that the way I am, it's okay, right? The opportunities are out there, but it's not meant for you in the box you think it's designed for. So that was the first eye-opener into entrepreneurship for me.
Okay, so since you got into that, let me ask, what does it really take to be an entrepreneur in today's world? Because I think anyone that's in that field now, they have a lot to learn. They have to be able to adapt really quickly to technology, for example, is changing almost every day. So what does it really take? What kind of mindset do you really need to be an entrepreneur today?
Before I start on that, I want to talk about entrepreneurship and businessman are two different words. Okay, so an entrepreneur is somebody who has an original idea, a vision, and they stick to it and they push it through. A businessman per se is someone who has an existing idea and takes it and grows it. So the definition are a bit different, but even though we use it interchangeably nowadays, to answer your question, what does it take?
Yeah.
If I had to really summarize it, it's perseverance and just grit, right? It's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's really not, right? Not having money to back you up. It's just being able to push through when everything seems impossible.
Sometimes you do need the backup of knowing the right people, having the money to even just get your something like a business idea, like a startup funded.
Sure.
So is that all what it takes really? Is it really just the grit that it takes, or is it knowing the right people?
Right. So the grit can now broken into pieces, right? So now part of the grit is going out there, meeting the people that's required to get there, and getting the fund to get there, right? So that's part of the grit. So when you go ask for the money, they could say it's not a good idea. You know what? I'm sorry, I'm out. And then the grit comes in, being able to keep asking until the right person says, you know what? I like your idea, right? So that's why I was summarizing everything to the grit and perseverance, right?
So this is just an example of what I went through. So when I announced that I was doing this podcast, at least 4 people messaged me saying, hey, like I thought of a podcast idea too, and I really wanted to do it too. Like, so what's your podcast about? Or like, how can I do it just like you're doing it? And this is a common theme that we have now where it's like everyone has great ideas, where it's like it stays as an idea for a very long time, and then it ends up just going down the drain instead of like taking that and like executing it and actually putting it into like a business or a product. So what is that little switch that you need to take your idea and really like move forward with it?
To be blunt, it's just how bad you want it. Like,
Right.
so certain entrepreneurs or businessmen, they become who they are because of a dire need. It wasn't an option. Let me think about it. It wasn't an option. It's like either do or die. People typically do, right? When there's plan B and other options, you're already making money over here and some money over there, the need's not there, right? So I believe the dire need is what really the switch to move forward.
Have you been in a situation like that where it's like you were in a do or die, or where you were at like a, let's say like your rock bottom, where you were like, you know what, this is it, like I can't go any further, this is going to be my start?
I'm in that situation all the time. Let me elaborate, right? So I like to put myself in a situation like that. So when I say do or die, it's like as the business grows, so there's a need for the business. So at every level, there's a do or die moment.
Yeah.
Okay, for me to go from a $5 million business to $10 million business, the do or die is different. Now I had to hire more employees. I got to be out there more. So now you have an overhead that can't support the 10 million. So you have to do or die kind of a situation, right? Yeah.
So coming back to the whole entrepreneurship topic, on the other hand of this do or die situation is like the generation that when you think of entrepreneurship, they think of like what you see on Instagram, which is
Sure.
like, the luxury, the bling, the suits at meetings, and like the flying private jets and all that. So what's really, I guess from your point of view and like your experience so far, like what would you say about the false sense of like that fantasy that's getting sold in this generation of like what entrepreneurship really is? Because when you really think about like startup founders, like the one that comes up to my mind is like Mark Zuckerberg.
Sure.
You don't see him posting a lot about like this is how I started and everything unless he gets interviewed. But on social media, on Instagram, for example, you see a lot of that. So what's your opinion on that idea of selling that false fantasy?
Okay, Mark Zuckerberg is a very extreme example.
Exactly, yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, these are anomalies. These guys are one in literally a billion.
Yeah.
How they approach business and everything, right? So I don't think, and also the kind of personality they have, most of them were introverts. Except Steve Jobs, he was an extrovert. Mm-hmm. So they don't want to be they want to actually solve a problem, right? But back to your point about this false thing, it's that a lot of people are selling the dream. They want the end product, the byproduct of owning a business, but they don't want to put in the effort that requires to get the byproduct, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's very false to chase the end rather than building the foundation that's required, because that builds character and personality, not the Lamborghini. All right, so I think that's very important, right?
But would you say that so as an entrepreneur, even like when you're starting off, what are some of the sacrifices you had to make as a person, let's say in your personal life, professional life, whatever it was?
Sacrifices, taking no breaks, right? Until you're able to establish your business, your processes, and all your staff. And also depends on the level of business you're building. Bigger the business, more time and effort required to be there, right? So in my early years, when I was 23 to 28, I partied far less. I missed a lot of events, right? But it was okay though, because I enjoyed creating, so I didn't feel like I missed out. Although I made up for all the lost parties afterwards.
Yes, of
but
course.
in your prime years, especially in your 20s, I think it's so crucial, because we've been told that, hey, life's young, YOLO. So have fun now, and then you can enjoy it later. I believe in the opposite. Work hard at young, and you can enjoy it afterwards. Right? I guess everybody can have their own opinion on that particular matter, but I believe you got to work in your 20s, and then you can enjoy them in your 30s.
It's funny you mention that because I can completely agree. That's exactly how my life was too. Like in my 20s is when I had to sacrifice a lot of like the social events.
Yeah.
Even though part of what I was doing did involve going to social events. I mean, like my friends' parties, for example. There's so many that I missed.
Yeah.
Because that's the time I was putting in the work.
Yeah.
But now when I look back at it, there are some friends that I've lost too. But do I really regret it? Not really, because I have that satisfaction that I did what I wanted to do, and maybe those friends were just not meant to be in my life.
Right.
So it is a give and take. Like you don't always win. It is a win and lose situation, I guess. But I want to come back to the age group that you were talking about from 24 to 28, for example. What was some of those days like? Do you still remember like when you would put in like, many hours of work and then not get like the final result at the end, or the opposite where you put so much of dedication into a specific project? Because I want like upcoming entrepreneurs to get an idea of what it really takes to now in your 30s and moving forward to have that stable foundation for a business. Like what does it really take in your early 20s to like that you can do in order to have that in the future for them?
The reason why I mentioned that age gap was that you're able to fail and fail forward often, and it does not take a toll on you. Right? What do you got to lose in your 20s? You just graduated. You may have this a car payment. That's about it. You can really fail and fail again until you get to the point where you can make it. Sometimes some people will fail a couple of times and make it, sometimes on the first try, right? But that allows you that time frame to learn. I think that's why starting early and failing early is important in business.
That's really interesting because that also comes into another thing I was thinking about, which is fear of failure.
Yes.
Which we all have, and it's a common thing to have. But what does it really take to, like, let's say from a point of view of saying, I want to avoid the fear of failure, therefore I'm going to fantasize what my life should be like, and then you go into like this daydreaming phase where you're in the other extreme. So what ends up when you daydream about what your life should be like is you don't end up doing anything in reality. You don't put your thoughts into action. But then on the opposite side, you have when you say, okay, I'm going to focus on my reality, I'm going to face failure, I'm going to take it for what it is, it can also lead to self-doubt. So what's your experience of dealing with the fear of failure, and how do you get back up in case that does happen?
Okay. Wow, that's a good question. Personally, I never had fear of failure at that age because I had nothing to lose.
Yes.
I was working as a security guard at Rogers at 22, making $12 an hour. I had nothing to lose. So for me, I had everything to gain. So my mindset was like, I'm at zero. So anything I do, even the smallest, it's on the plus side. When I say you have to fail, you don't try to fail, but failure is part of the business process. Yeah. Right? So
you just learn to accept that that's part of the process.
And when you fall down, sit there for a couple of minutes and see what happened and get back up and you do the whole thing all over again, really, right? And that's as simple as that. It's not rocket science.
I like that you said that, because I think what you said, even like the fact that you used to work as a security guard, I think that's something would be very inspiring for people to hear now. Like, I think recently we've seen like not the generation, but I would say a lot of immigrants that have moved here with high hopes of making it in Toronto, for example. And all of them are working part-time jobs. Like even in downtown, like the amount of people you see working part-time jobs while managing school. Yeah. I think what you just said of having that mindset of you have nothing to lose at that age would be very inspiring, because it'll give them that motivation just to keep going. But okay, so that comes into my other question. You mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad. Are there any other books you would say that like really helped you change your mindset? Or
there's a handful of books, right? But Rich Dad Poor Dad is definitely my top one. Okay. And there's one by Don Miguel called Mastery of Love.
Yes, I love that book.
Yeah. Okay. And the Four Agreements.
Yes. I've read the whole series. It's really good.
The latest book by Patrick B. David, Choose Your Enemies wisely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Haven't read that one.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a really good list. So I'm sure people will go find that book now. How do you deal with burnout now compared to how when you were younger? What are the differences that you see with the way you handle it now versus how you handled it later? Because I'll just give you my personal experience. Before, like, I feel like I had the motivation to just keep going. Now I've learned the balance of saying, okay, today I'm taking a day off and I'm gonna have that time for myself. Tomorrow I'll go forward. So it's just being more aware of what I need. What's your experience on that?
I agree with you on that 100% because I'm glad you asked before and now because the way I would approach that is completely different. In the 20s, I didn't believe in burnout. I mean, burnout was a luxury. Like what? Like you can't burn out. If you burn out, you're done. So you keep going, right? And then once you're established, once you know what you're doing, and it's important for you to perform at the level you're performing. A break. And knowing when to take a step back is crucial, right? But I'm lucky enough to have team members, systems in place that allows me to do that. But at the beginning, you're bootstrapping. You're everything. Yeah. You're the accountant. You're the project manager. Yeah. You're everything, right? So it's a different time. But at the beginning, I don't like to sell the idea of burning out, taking a break to young people because you have so much energy. We're also young as well, but being in 20s is a whole different ballgame than being in your 30s, right? So I don't believe in saying take a break, just go all out. Right?
But isn't that what leads to burnout though, going all out?
Because you're able to do certain things in your 20s, you know, like, okay, even partying, for example, right? You're able to party all night. I don't know about you, but I used to party all night in my 20s. Now at 12 o'clock, I'm done. I want to go home, right? Yes. So the point that I'm making is the energy level is much different, right? So when you're young, I think you should pursue, push, and then once you have things figured out, then you can slowly, reflect on what you're doing and how you should do it.
But I do want to ask, like, what's your take on working? Like sometimes you have this whole like hustle culture of like, go all in and like work long hours and then versus putting in a certain amount of hours, but then doing your best work. There's a difference because sometimes you can say, okay, I'm going to work on my project today and like allocate 6 hours for it. In that 6 hours, you could be doing your work. You could be scrolling on Instagram. You could be watching like a show on the background. That's all counted in that 6 hours versus when you say, I'm going to work for 2 hours today and put my full energy into it. Shut off your phone, shut off the TV. Everything's off. Your focus is only on that time. So which one do you think is more efficient based on your experience, I guess?
That also falls into which timeline you are in. Is it in your 20s or your 30s or your 40s, right? Right. I think that's also an important variable. So I had to look up hustle culture before I came here because I Googled it. It said, someone who keep trying different things but when I was growing up, hustle culture meant, just doing anything to make money, get money. It doesn't matter how you did it, right?
So that's not the definition. That's new to me too, because that's what I thought.
Yes, that's the old definition. The new definition on Google is different, right? Okay. So I feel like the hustle culture now is they jump opportunity to opportunity. And never sticking to that opportunity long enough to build your craft long enough to be able to earn the income you want. If, one day you're in real estate, one day you're selling mortgages, other day you're selling insurance because you're following the money. Right. But I believe you have to stick to one craft or complementing to your main craft. And that's how you make real money. It may take 10 years to make that $10 million, but you will make it because you know so much about the industry, right? But a lot of young people are chasing, the quick money, right? Whether it's crypto or like a lot of commerce things online, right? It's okay to chase all that, but you gotta realize you cannot base your business model on an anomaly.
Right.
Crypto millionaires, there's thousands, but there's also millions who lost their money.
Yes.
So you can't take a small example of people who made it really well, and they got lucky. It's not you can't replicate that model. They were right time, right place, and they had a bit of money, and they made a lot of money. you can't repeat that. It's like going to the casino, roulette, right? You know, just because someone won 1,000 times in the game for the night, not taking into account people who lost money in there, right? That's my take on that.
Okay, so speaking of all this, one of the reasons that I actually wanted you as a guest on my podcast is because I've been following your work on social media, and I love the reels that you've been posting where it's like the thought of the day. And I really like that because what that does is people get to know who you are as a person and your way of thinking, so that even if they were to come to you for your business, they'll also get to know you as a person.
Absolutely.
So for example, if they hire you as a realtor, they'll know that you're really good at understanding life from a different point of view and giving good advice. So they'll come to you for the advice side of things and business side of things. So when I noticed that, I'm like, okay, I need to pick your brain about that, because like I wanted to know, do men find it harder to post content on social media compared to women?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I don't know about that, but I have a fucking hard time posting. I can swear on this, right?
Go ahead.
I do have a hard time. Posting things. It's because getting the angle right, all those things. It's very tough because I'm not used to that. So I just so even posting those things were just a way of me trying it out to see what I can do. But I've been getting good feedback on that. So I've been trying to do it every week, once a week.
No, that's really good, because even not considering the angles and which is the right way to shoot, which I understand that, because if you're not an artist or a creator naturally, that will be something that you're concerned about. But I'm talking more about the concern of like, what will people say? Will my friends make fun of me? Like, are those the type of things? Did they? Okay, yeah. See, this is what I wanted to know, because I feel
100% they make fun of you.
Yeah.
And pro tip of the day is the joke of the day. When I go with my friends, you know, they always say what I said on the video, right? But it's not to like put me down. It's just a joke, right? I got thick skin, so it's okay, right? You can't be in business and not be thick skin, right? So
no, but I really I appreciate you for doing that, because it's very different from what I've seen, and I think please continue doing that. Don't stop because people are making fun of you. I'm sure they also encourage you on the side as well.
Absolutely, they do. Yeah.
But also coming back to getting to know you as a person aside from your business, how important is it to create a personal brand for yourself so that people kind of get to know both sides of you? And especially on social media. So
when you say personal brand, right, are you just referring being a personal brand for your business, or just build personal brand in generically?
Let's say it this way. So in the past, when you go to an event, you can easily go up to a person and be like, hey, here's my business card, and then talk to them and get to know them. But these days, like, not that there aren't any events left, and networking events do happen, but most people do network online.
Sure.
So given that, it's like when you meet a person and all you see is like on social media, on Instagram, for example, if all you see is what they're selling or their product, you don't get to know them as a person. But if you post a mix of who you are as a person, what you love doing, like for example, like in your post, something I've seen is like where you like going on vacation, what you like doing on weekends. Like people get to know that side of you, which also adds to you becoming more approachable to your businesses as well. So it's like an online business card, right?
That's interesting you say that, because I didn't post those things for that reason. I was just posting it because I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
But now you mentioned it. For personal brand is, I think, definitely important. I'm working on that just now. But more important than that, you have to focus on your business, because the business gives you that authority, right? You got to be somebody, right? And the business, from that, you can branch off building your business brand, right? You have to have an offering in your business, like, oh, I do this, X, Y, and Z. And then the personal brand comes in afterwards. Okay. If you don't have sales in your business, there's no point of having a personal brand. Then it's just a regular page, right? Is what I think.
But do you feel like, let's say someone is focusing on just creating a personality for themselves on Instagram, and they get their followers, wouldn't that also eventually get them business opportunities as well?
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a different business model on itself.
Okay.
Right? So for example, I'm in construction.
Yes.
I need to focus on construction, selling that product, and personal brand will complement me. But if someone wants to sell, I don't know, something online, but to do that, to get the reach, it's best to build that brand, and it's part of the business model. So that comes first, then the product comes next.
Right. Okay, I'll give you an example. So let's say someone's selling an online course. Okay. So even like the masterclass example that we were talking about offline, like if that's what they're trying to sell, like an online course, it also helps to build that brand for themselves so that people find them approachable enough to sign up to their online course, right?
That example, that's a different example.
Okay.
So to buy your coaching program, what have you accomplished?
Right.
Right? So what have you done? How long have you been in the industry in order for me to come purchase that coach? At least that's the way I compute it. Right?
Right.
Or like Kylie Jenner, right? I think that's the right name, right? So she has to do it the other way around. The product, she doesn't manufacture. She's not a scientist. She just has a product. She gets it made. But a personal brand allows her to sell it to vast majority.
Yeah.
Right? So based on the business model, you can do the one way or another. But when it comes to coaching, you got to build a bit of your own track record. Who are you, right? What are you offering? At least that's my take on it.
So one of the reasons I asked you this is to kind of do the reverse psychology, because my actual intention of asking that question was, we see a lot of people selling online courses these days.
All BS. I'm sorry.
No, which is what I was getting to, because it's like, what credentials do they really have, right? And how do you trust someone when they say, here's my online course?
Yeah.
Like, what experience are you showing? And that's based on the content that they're posting on Instagram, which you don't know. Like, they could be creating that just, like, it's a persona that they're putting up on Instagram.
So a lot of online courses are white labeled. So basically, they would take Robert Kiyosaki's ideas, put it as their own content, ChatGPT, and you're now reselling it as yours, right?
Yeah.
And that happens. I'm not saying every single person is doing that, but I think in the current days, you got to be very, very careful on what you consume online, because there's a lot of content that can actually confuse someone young.
Coming back to scrolling on Instagram, seeing the personas that people create online and stuff. So what kind of pressure do men specifically have? I'm asking this just because I want to pick your brain on it. What kind of pressure do men have to kind of accomplish certain goals by a certain age and always be like the breadwinner, in quotes, for their family? Like, I feel like there's like this underlying pressure for that men are always responsible to like be the hard workers. They're not allowed to like stay home and like take care of their family and kids. But at the same time, when they don't spend enough time doing that also, they get criticized for that too. So what's your take on that? Have you had any personal experience in that or heard any stories?
I believe in the nuclear family. The father, breadwinner, mother, kids. I really believe in the concept. I think it works. It has worked for many years.
Okay.
Right? And I think now we're moving away from that ideology. I think it's not sustainable.
Okay.
Right? And nothing wrong with men working hard, and nothing wrong with women being a housewife. But I'm not saying that's how it should be, right? Based on situation, based on your upbringing, it can change. Yeah. Right? Sometimes both husband and wife has to work to bring in income, right? So I'm not saying as a generic answer. As for men, I think men should work hard. Just go out there, right? Especially depends on if you're the eldest in the family. It's a different mindset versus if you're a middle and if you're the last.
Right.
And that also now can boil down to which community are you from.
Okay.
Tamil community especially, right? The eldest typically have all the onus, right?
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. Because I like how you were like, let me just pause there to not say.
I want to be canceled.
It's like the feminist in me is going to be, how dare you say that? But I'm not going to say that because I actually understand your point of view. But for me, it's like I wanted to focus on like that underlying pressure and stress that men put themselves through because of that image that they have of like, I have to do this, which is not the case. You'd never know which age you're going to succeed in and like what field you're going to succeed in. It could be something very different from what other men have done. So I feel like that pressure is there for men and that causes a lot of stress. Right. But I wanted to get into like how you overcome that stress and kind of be like, just brush it off and like keep going with whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I think my upbringing was that, right? So I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know anything other than not to lead.
Oh, okay.
Right? I was always in that position to lead. So that's all I know. And that also translates into my business, right? But question for you though. So how do you define feminism?
So, oh, geez, this is an interesting one. So I do have a bit of a different opinion when it comes to feminism. For me, feminism is women being free to be who they want to be.
Okay.
And not feeling the need to bash men to feel good about themselves.
I like that.
Because I feel like what
Well said.
happens is when it comes to feminism, the people who are more vocal about what feminism is are usually the women that have experienced extreme situations where men have put them down so much that they have to take the aggressive, like the path in order to prove themselves. And those are the women who end up being vocal about it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that's the standard definition of feminism.
Right.
My definition is that women are just free to be who they are without falling into certain stereotypes and treating men equally, and we both have equal opportunities to shine in our own ways, because there are certain things a woman can do that a man can, and a man can do that a woman can't. And no matter how many people say that that's not true, I believe that is the case, and therefore a woman should be the best version of herself, and that to me is feminism. It's just that freedom to be who you want to be.
Wow, well said. What are your thoughts on then?
It's we're switching roles here. Okay, go for it.
I'll make it quick. What are your thoughts on young girls don't have the right ideologies? Young girls not having the role models to look up to, right? There's only few that are spoken of, when it comes to that, right? Mm-hmm. And most girls I notice are looking up to Nicki Minaj or like what's the other artist, ridiculous shit, right? So they're becoming like that, right? So now, in the name of feminism, you're kind of copying those ladies as a person to look up to rather than people who actually accomplish things. I think that's the problem.
Firstly, Nicki Minaj has accomplished things for herself. Again, it comes down to that. So I would say Nicki Minaj being herself in the most whatever way she wants to be, but being herself is her definition of feminism. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily mean it works for everyone and will work for everyone. But I do understand your point of view, because I do agree that, like the younger generation, they're looking up to, especially when it comes to beauty standards, for example, they're looking up at these perfect figures, not realizing how much work goes into people's faces. And they're growing up saying, this is my definition of perfection, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So that I do agree that they don't have the right role models all the time. But I wouldn't say, I think that's just one category of women. There's also other categories of women that they can go seek, but it depends on their upbringing and what they're going through at their homes. If they're growing up in an environment where like they're getting insulted by their own families for the way they look or what they want to pursue, they are going to go that other aggressive way and be like, you know what, I'm going to be a rebel and like do whatever I want. And that turns into aggressive behavior.
Right.
Whereas there are other people who take situations like that, for example, and say, let me change this into another way, and I'm going to give back to my community. I'm using me as an example here, but that's exactly what happened. I got criticized for for the passions that I had and what I wanted to follow. But instead of putting it up in an aggressive way and be like, "Don't tell me what to do," I used that as my fuel to be like, "Let me show you that the things you insulted are the most impactful things in the world," which was art, following art.
Like that.
So it really comes down to your mindset and how you take it. So even when it comes to girls who are growing up, like I have nieces who are like now in universities now, and like they're growing up, and that fear is there that they're going to go to university and see things online and be like, they're doing it, therefore I should do it. But I think it comes down to using your own mindset and making the most out of your situation and defining things for yourself. Like that's one thing I always say, like always like live life on your own terms. So it comes to feminism too. Feminism is its own thing, but I don't believe that you need to bash men in order to feel good. I think it should be respect them and respect yourself enough to know what you want.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I know we switched roles.
And this concludes Manoj's episode. I'm just kidding. So my last few questions, actually. What are your future aspirations as an entrepreneur, whether it's your business or like you as a person? Like, are there any other industries that you're interested in? Because I feel like what you're doing now is such a cool industry, the construction industry, and like I've seen some of your work too. So it's such an interesting industry to be in. So where do you see yourself, like what's the next step for you? I wouldn't say where do you see yourself in 5 years, because I don't believe in those, but what's your future aspirations?
Right now, we're working with a group of people in real estate, construction, land development. Right. Our goal is to. I mean, I'm personally inspired by the Italian, Jewish, Portuguese, and other Muslim communities who helped build this country, right?
Okay.
And as a group, I want to leave behind the impact and the legacy as they have in the past.
Okay.
Right. So this is part of our 10-year plan, right? So everything we're doing, it's like call it foundation. Everything I've learned so far is just the foundation, right? And now we have the foundation. We want to build on that the next 10 years.
That's really inspiring, because for me, when I see you, I feel like someone that's like successful, but also still on their journey of like pushing your boundaries. So for you to say that that's just my foundation and I'm just getting started, I think that's very inspiring to many people, because again, we want that quick success. Like everyone in our generation is striving for that. So to know when to put in like your foundation and say, okay, now that it's very strong, you move on to that next path. So any other pieces of advice you would say for new entrepreneurs who are getting into like either working on something for themselves or wanting to be, again in quotes, businessmen or businesswomen? What would your advice be for them?
There's no secret formula to success. Go down to your grassroots, pick something, stick to it long enough, push it through, and don't just follow the money, right? If you follow the money, you may make money short term, but you cannot build a legacy, right? And when you chase money, there's a ceiling to it. After a while, when things get tough, when you don't want to work, you will most likely quit and walk away. I hate saying this word, when you follow passion, I mean, passion is very generic, but when you follow like something that you enjoy doing, then you can keep pushing it through. Even if it means doing something you don't like temporarily, so you can do something you like afterwards.
Yes. And that comes to also the discussion about like the corporate, like working corporate while you have like a side hustle, for example, which eventually becomes your full-time gig, right?
Yeah.
And you have experience in that too.
Absolutely.
So let's say because I have the balance of both, where I'm still in the corporate field, but then I'm also doing all my other artistic creative endeavors on the side. What would you say for someone who's listening to this, who's in that corporate 9 to 5 and like, you know, they're like burnt out, they don't want to be there anymore, but they haven't found that next thing to like jump towards?
Sorry, can you say that again? So what would I say for them to jump to the next business? Sorry, what's the question?
So if someone's in like a 9 to 5 job now, they know they're meant for more, but they haven't figured out that one specific thing that they can go after. But they know they want to quit because they want to kind of have that freedom to be more, I don't know how I would say it. Like, I think be an entrepreneur as in focus on one specific goal, not work under someone, and be self-employed, let's say, for example. So what would you say to those people? Like, what's that first step they need to take in terms of mindset or action in order to kind of put behind their corporate job and take that leap into business?
That's a tough one. I just quit from my first job to business. I just quit my job, and then I took the leap of faith. But I did it when I was super young, so I was able to do it. Being able to do this when you have a family and overhead, it is a bit different. Try to replace your income fast as you can, right? And once you hit that the number that makes you happy to jump, I think you just quit and go full time. It's as simple as that.
It sounds you make it sound easy, but it is a risky move. But I'm pretty sure it also requires patience, right?
Yeah.
But I think I would say, like, I was inspired by this conversation we had, and I'm pretty sure many people who are in that kind of place where they want to make that leap, I think they probably have been inspired by your conversation too. But so any last words you want to say before we wrap up?
Well, that's it. Just keep trying. Yeah.
That's a good way to wrap up, because I like that, because not many people say keep trying. They say, you're going to make it, or this is it, or whatever it is. So I'm glad you said that. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope to see more of you on social media making reels, because I know I have a feeling your businesses are only going to keep getting higher from here. So I hope to see more of it and more of it on social media for everyone to get inspired by.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and follow on Spotify. Till next time.